Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third episode of Luca. We are so happy to have you with us, and for all of you that tune in. So today, I have our National Advocacy Director, as well as our Texas State Executive Director, Carlos Teresios. You guys, I just want to say how proud I am. We are, Tony and I, our founder, to have him on our team. He is such a strong patriot, for his generation and for this younger generation. And I know, Carlos, you've been out there doing this since you were 17. I know this is a subject that is very near and dear to your heart. And man, the activity that you bring in regards to DEI and how important it is to really understand exactly what this is, what it means, how it's affected our country. Just everything. So I just want to thank you. I'm so proud that you are a part of Luca, and we know that a lot of the work that you're doing for Texas, and that you want to be an example for, is there in the schools, because they really are after this next generation of children, and it is really sad. It is scary. So we have to really pay attention. So I'm going to let you take the floor from here, kind of talk a little bit about what you've done, who you are, and, the importance of understanding DEI.
Well, I appreciate it, Milena, for inviting me to this episode. And of course, for anyone that does not know me, my name is Carlos Tercios, and I'm the Texas Executive Director for Luca and also the National Advocacy Director for Luca as well. And I've been involved in politics since I was 15 years old. I've been mostly involved in school board politics, and I've been very involved in that, whether it be on racial equity stuff or gender equity stuff, all the woke garbage that's being implemented in our schools. I've been very involved with parents and making sure that we've, hold accountable our school board members, directors, principals, and just the ISD in general and Fort Worth ISD. And so I've organized protests, I've organized rallies,
Yeah.
been able to actually get a superintendent to resign, a school board member to resign, and of course the racial equity director to resign as well. And it has been a huge journey, of course. A lot of people have gotten involved as a result of, COVID. COVID has awoken a lot of parents, and I've been able to meet a lot of wonderful parents and activists in our community that were not involved in the past, but they got involved because they saw what's happening, to their kids' classroom for the first time when COVID happened, because everything was online. And so I've been involved in that fight. Organized Back to Blue marches and rallies in 2020 when Black Lives Matter was very much against police, and I've organized pro-Trump marches and rallies as well. And I've written for the Star Telegram. I was a columnist for a year there as well, and I'm a Republican precinct chair here in Tarrant County.
Nice. That is wonderful. So, talk a little bit about what you know and how you really started to understand DEI. And I know it started in school, and how you felt about it and exactly what became of it whenever you realized that, hey, this something isn't right here with this.
So I first started to understand about what the EI was when I was 15. So I got appointed by the board president to one of the committees called the Racial Equity Committee. At the age of 15, of course, you're not going to be questioning a lot. If you hear committee, you're going to be thinking, oh, it's just going, this is a wonderful committee for, making an impact in the community and making important decisions. So, of course, I took it without questioning or anything. And I thought equity was, well, I guess maybe just helping people or making sure the scores are better. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I got it there, and of course, a couple meetings, later, I realized there was nothing more than a huge left-wing operation to indoctrinate kids, and of course to promote an agenda. They were talking about how to turn Texas blue. They were talking about how white people are very much against minorities and they're privileged and they're racist against you naturally and all that. And they were just talking about a lot of nonsense. And so I went to one of my closest teachers, and today he's a mentor to me, and I told him what was happening in those meetings, and he told me, oh, not surprised, it's been going on for a long time. And so he told me that he was actually glad that I was going to that committee meeting and of course attending, because everyone else there would just be in the echo chamber. And so
Yeah.
he's an opportunity, of course, to be transparent. And I showed it to my parents as well, what was happening, and they were just completely shocked that they were just talking about trashing white people. White people are the root cause of everything for what
Wow.
bad. And so I decided to stay because if I would have left, no one would have been talking about the videos that I leaked. No one would have been talking about the documents that I eventually gathered and eventually leaked later, because there would have been a huge echo chamber. All of them online. And so I stayed for a couple of years. I didn't attend every single meeting, but I did get access to, emails and the meeting minutes, and of course documents, important documents. And most importantly, I was able to attend the racial equity summits that they would do every single year, where they would invite presenters and speakers to talk about critical race theory and race relations in America, and basically how to deconstruct whiteness. Apparently it's an ideology. And, I took video, I took recordings, I did, I took everything as much as I could. I eventually got 10
Wow.
gigabytes. And eventually, by around 2021, I decided to send that information to Fox News and other media outlets, and I
Good.
eventually meetings in the community showing parents what was happening. And as a result of these meetings and of course awareness that I started to spread, a lot of people got involved. We made several marches and protests against critical race theory, and ultimately the school reunions were packed. We eventually went after the superintendent, the racial equity committee meetings. As a result of this, the racial
Love
equity
it. Hmm.
are now underground. They're no longer public, and they're a shell of themselves in what they were in the past. They're no longer doing racial equity summits. It's basically a shell of itself. But the superintendent resigned, the racial equity director resigned, and the fourth most radical school board member also resigned. And so we've made some changes in the ISD, and of course, there's still more work to do. But ultimately, my end goal, my ultimate goal, not just in Fulton ISD, but hopefully across the country, is that DEI is eradicated. What
Yeah.
I see as a student, and of course during those years in Fulton ISD, was nothing more than just hatred. And what they do is that, and I'm going to explain how they implement and the steps that they do. But the core for their committee, or any DEI committee really, is critical race theory. And for people that don't know what critical race theory is basically the legal analysis of society and how race plays a role in society. So if there's a discrepancy between Group A and Group B, if Group B is down here, Group A is up here, their whole argument is it's because of racism. Racism is the root cause for why there's a gap. you know, Group A has historically been better off. Maybe they had more wealth, per,
Hmm.
per
Hmm.
maybe they had more power. Maybe more of them have been elected throughout history. And Group B is, down here, and maybe they were oppressed, they were discriminated in the past. So what they do is they use history a lot, and history is the biggest weapon that they use. And unfortunately, it's the reason why a lot of conservatives don't want to talk that much about the AI. You see them going after transgenderism and gender ideology.
Hmm.
But the reason why they go after gender ideology very easily and why it's easier to attack is because there's no history behind that. It's all new, it's a new phenomenon. But critical race theory and DEI, they use the wound, the sin of America, and the biggest sin that America has unfortunately had, is racism. And, not every country is perfect, but America, in my opinion, is a beautiful country because, unlike other places, it has always worked to perfect itself and to be better than it used to be. And they weaponize history, they bring up those old wounds, and that's how they are able to manipulate millions of people across the country, especially Black or Hispanic, and they manipulate them by evoking these memories, the history. Look what they did to your grandparents. Remember what happened in the past,
Wow.
and so history is their main weapon. Critical race theory is a horrible ideology that they're
Well, but Carlos, I'm sorry, but they're trying to eradicate history. They're getting rid of monuments. They are really doing all. I mean, they're
yes.
trying to erase it. So they use it and then they try to erase it. So what is the theory behind that?
So history is important when it's convenient. So they only focus on the negative parts of America, such as slavery, Jim Crow, the transatlantic slave trade, all of the, bad parts of history is convenient to them because they can weaponize it and they can apply it today. And
Yeah.
they can then use that to make the argument that, well, George Washington, was sympathetic towards slave owners, so therefore we need to remove his statues. And they disregard all the good stuff that he actually accomplished when he was president. And they disregard the context of the time, because if we were born during that time, you
Yeah.
know, the practices and norms are completely different. If you go back 2,000 years ago, the practices and norms and the culture was completely different. It would be
Yeah.
alien today, and it's going to happen 200 years from now. Historians are going to be looking at us today, and they're going to be saying, well, they were much more, backwards or not that advanced. And that's just history. And so they disregard the context of the time, and they weaponize history when it's convenient. And that's why they're removing all these statues, because they say, well, racism happened here, slavery happened here, Jim Crow happened here,
Mhm.
and because George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, anyone that is white, because they lived during this time, we can make the argument that they need to be condemned because maybe they were slave owners, or maybe they said something bad. You know, and they have no control over the environment they were born in or the time they were born.
Right.
Just like how I don't have control over the fact that I was born in the year 2001. So it's convenience. That's what they do. They cherry pick history. But bottom line is, history is a weapon. If you point the correct things, you can galvanize the population, and you can basically make them, to hate another group of people, or to hate their country, or to hate, the history of the country. And so
And
that's
that's
the
the problem. I mean, sorry, but if we erase history, it's so true. If we erase history, we are bound to repeat it again, right? So
yeah,
that's something that we do not want to do, and that is a part. I mean, that's a huge thing of what they're trying to
yeah,
do right now. That they've really obviously have been successful in some aspect.
yeah, yeah. And so DEI is a Trojan horse to implement critical race theory.
Mm.
And critical race theory makes everyone believe that race plays a role in everything. And the way they, the people in the committee, going back to the committee, the way they view the world was more of a religion.
Yeah,
Critical race is a religion. People that follow the eye, they treat it like if it's a religion, because, if you are to be a true anti-racist, you need to apply it every single day. You need to question, oh, was my neighbor, when he was talking to me, was he, being an anti-racist, or was he being prejudiced because maybe he said, oh wow, good job that you got a new job.
yeah.
They criticize every little detail because they believe that race plays a role in every interaction, every single action, anything that happens in your life. Race has something to do with it. So,
Wow.
in fact, you need to question anyone that is white, anyone that is Hispanic as well. Basically, anyone that's non-black, you need to question what are their motives. Why are you doing it? So it makes them paranoid schizophrenics. Okay, with all due respect, that's why all the people that support all of this nonsense. I
Yeah.
mean, so insane that they call everything racist.
Well,
They,
and if you remember recently, they tried to push out the narrative that there were Hispanic supremacists.
yeah, yeah,
Remember? Do you remember? I mean, this just happened earlier in the year, and I mean,
that,
they make stuff up,
that that's the thing, is that during my time in that committee, um, racism. So for us, for ordinary Americans,
Mhm.
racism is basically any group of people, or someone that believes that they're superior than another group of people. You
Right.
know, discriminating against another group of people because of their skin color. That's racism. But in their playbook, they view racism, because it all ties with history,
Mhm.
as a system of power.
Yeah.
And so, if you were to follow their mindset, by default, we technically can never be racist, because historically speaking, we have been marginalized as a group of people. So that means, if you're black, you're Hispanic, you're Asian, you're basically non-white, you can never be racist because your ancestors never had positions of power, and even to this day, technically speaking, you don't have position of power because the majority of the country is white. So that's how everything. They change the vocabulary, they weaponize history, and that's why whenever you say, "Well, you're being a racist," they're always ignorant. They always say, "Oh,
Yeah.
I can't be racist because I'm not in a position of power."
Right.
You know, change.
And you know what's also crazy, Carlos, is that I did this whole research, and a lot of people don't understand, and this is the part of it, of understanding history, which is very important. But my ancestors from Spain, the Spanish, were some of the largest. I mean, was a huge, uh, the largest of slave owners, and they brought so many of the African Americans and other
Yeah,
to the South America, into North America. They were like probably one of the largest groups
yeah,
of people that brought slaves into these continents. And it's so sad that you have to really, share that and point that out. And we're Spanish. I mean, these are my ancestors, and I had did this whole article, and it really, really went out there and went viral because a lot of people just didn't understand. I was like, we have to stop this. And
yeah.
that's the problem, is that there's such an ignorance in the understanding of true history. And so what we're speaking on tonight is a huge factor of that. And so, and you can see that the chaos and the issues that it brings to a whole generation, to your generation, actually, the generation of my girls who are in their, early 30s and late 20s. It's your generation that they went after. So, I mean, it's so sad, but what do we need to do in our communities as we the people, as Americans? What's the best solution for now for us to get involved and try to eradicate this?
Well, number one, of course, make sure that you get involved. Make sure you go to the school board meetings. If you know that there's DEI, make sure you attend those DEI meetings and
Yeah.
order what they're doing, ask them questions, push back. Because that's the one thing that we did is we started to go to this racial equity committee meetings, and of course, I helped educate the parents and of course give them information of what was really happening. And the minute they start asking simple questions, such as, do you think 10-year-old white kids in 4 or 5 SD are white supremacists based on your definition? Because that's the one thing they wrote in their manual, is that they want to dismantle white supremacy. And so we asked them the question, what is white supremacy? They cannot answer that question. They were just in shock, because a lot of the parents that went and the people that went were, they were Hispanic, some of them were black. So they were kind of shocked because in their little echo chamber, white supremacy is basically just whites doing better economically.
Yeah.
That's white supremacy. And so one of the parents gave a definition. This is what white supremacy is: when whites in the 60s and 50s would lynch blacks, and they would kill, and they would basically do terror to enforce their white supremacy. But then of course, we now live in the year 2023. Are 10-year-old white kids white supremacists based on your definition? And they were just completely embarrassed when we asked them simple questions.
Wow.
By the meeting is closed to the public, they're a shell of themselves now. They don't have summits anymore. They don't have conferences or anything like that. And so that's one thing people need to do, is they need to go to those meetings and just push back,
Yeah.
ask questions such as, what is racism? And they will have a heart attack, because in their little echo, they sound all beautiful and intelligent. But the minute the general population gets involved, is the
Mhm.
minute they'll just be embarrassed and
To
humiliated.
kind to corner them, you have to go in there and pretty much corner them to explain themselves, right? Because it doesn't make sense. And what about those that they actually were successful in? I call it brainwashing. Obviously, it's brainwashing, and it's just lying to them, that believe that America's bad and that white people are bad. Like, now it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of education to undo what they have done. And especially, we've all spoken about this before in Luca, fighting for this next generation of kids. And that's why, like you said, it is important that we are there, because this is, I don't want to give up on this generation, because I do believe that there are more that in your generation, like my daughter's generation, that believe the way you do, that understand it the way that you do, that has, because it's my generation that raised you, right? And I know we don't believe this mess. I know. So I feel like there are more, but I do believe that there is enough in your generation, obviously, to cause havoc and to cause division, and to be able to use what this ideology to keep us divided, and on their mission to divide and conquer, right? And so, but I mean, like you said, we have to be at the school boards. We have to show up. We have to unite, and we have to overpower that they stop this, to have it eradicated from every single school.
Yeah. No, no, I fully agree 100%. Go to those school board meetings, go to those public meetings, anything that has to do with DEI, do public records requests, ask them questions. And then, of course, when you get enough parents involved and enough citizens in your community involved, go to your state rep or state senator
Yeah.
and demand that they pass a law out, just outright banning DEI in public schools, banning DEI in public universities here in the state of Texas,
Mm-hmm.
at the public university level, which I think is just nothing more than laziness. Because
Yeah.
if you stop it from the root, it doesn't matter. By then they'll be brainwashed because they've had 12 years of critical race theory, and so you have to ban it. And we're all and in my opinion, it does violate. In my opinion, it does violate civil rights,
Yeah.
because doing at the end of the
Yeah.
day is you are ultimately saying that anyone that is white, anyone that's Anglo-Saxon is,
It's bad.
oppressed, they
Yeah.
are privileged. You're basically just creating a stigma, and you're dehumanizing the entire population, which is strange because in the past when the civil rights movement was happening, the whole argument was, well, we're all Americans, we all need to be treated equally. But today they're just completely going insane, and they're doing it on purpose because it's all about power. And at the end of the day, it's all about having control. The people at the end of the day, the people that are pushing this, they have an end game, and that end game is to have enough Americans divided where they can pass, a lot of government overreach policies and laws in the future. So that's the
And
one
it
thing.
has to happen at home too, right, Carlos? Like those of us that know, we have to be talking to our children, our grandchildren every day. That if you hear this, if your teacher is telling you this, that is so incorrect and that is wrong, and explain to them why they're hearing that, and teach them the right way, and teach them that we're all Americans. We
Yep.
have to love each other. Doesn't matter what color, race, anything, any of that. Luca, yeah, we're Latinos United for Conservative Action, but we're only Latinos, but you don't have to be Latino to be in our organization. We're just here because we know that we are no longer the minority, and we're going to become the majority. And so we just want to be here to unite everybody, right? So, and we're hoping that essentially we can get rid of, the identity politics. That's the goal, and that's the key with Luca, is that we're really hoping to bring everybody on that path where we can get rid of identity politics. Because people ask me all the time, Melinda, when are we going to stop using identity politics? I said, well, when we stop allowing the Democrats to use that against each other, to keep us divided, to make us feel that one is less of the other, when we're all Americans and we shouldn't be less than anybody. So of any other person due to color or money or anything like that, we have to get back to the basics. So but I really think also, to our audience, making sure that inside of the home, within your own family, within your children, that we have to have these conversations. Sadly, we have to talk to them about the importance of not looking at race, color, gender, identity, none of that, and just love on each other as fellow as Americans.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. I agree with that. And you have to educate your kids. You have to make sure that they're prepared for what they
Mhm.
might face and what they might actually see in the classroom, because this is a cultural revolution.
Yeah.
You know, and they what they want is complete total control of the population. The Nazis did it in the 1930s in Germany. They it all first started with harassing, and of course saying that the Jewish population, they have all the power, they have all the riches, they're privileged, they're the
Mm,
reason for, and then they ultimately, Jews were being bullied. They were eventually being called slurs. They were eventually basically just dehumanized, and it started from bullying, and it led to concentration camps and mass genocide. And that's what ultimately dictators have used. In China, they did that against anyone that was anti-communist during the Cultural Revolution 1966. They basically said those people are bad, those people are the reason why China is behind, and hundreds of thousands were killed. Soviet
wow.
Union 30s. The kulaks were killed. Joseph Stalin said, all the farm owners and the people that own land, they are the enemy of the people. They're the reason why you're poor. They're the reason why you're oppressed. They're the reason why you're this and that, X, Y, and Z. And then next thing you know, when you keep pushing this ugly rhetoric, enough people will believe it. It will basically be mass psychosis,
Yeah.
and millions died as a result of that. So, of course, I know people are going to call me crazy and all that, but if you read the history, this is ultimately what can happen. It can lead to violence, it can lead to, unfortunately, loss of life,
Mhm.
because unfortunately, you're going to have people believing white people oppress me, the reason I'm poor, the reason I'm this and that and that. And, Americans need to realize this is a bigger threat in the long term
Mhm.
than gender ideology and transgenderism, because they're using history, they're using things that can at least somewhat back up and
Yeah.
weaponize by twisting it. That's what they're doing. They're just
Oh,
twisting.
and I also believe, I tell people you need to research what Marxism is, what Marxism means, what
Yeah,
it's all about, and you will be blown away with the reality of that. It's we're watching it happen now, and I think a lot of people don't understand, and this is a part of it. What Marxists do, what their end goal is, and it isn't good. It's not good. They know that this is the last free country that people around the world can run to. It is a part of the one world order. We're watching it all over the place, where the entities to be, the higher ups around the world, have an agenda for human population and and control. And so America is the beacon of hope. We are the beacon of freedom, and they are literally trying to shut us down, because then that way nobody will have anywhere to go. And so we the people have to really, I mean, Carlos, you and I both know that this election year coming up is huge and it's very important. And I really feel that this is going to be one of the last,
I agree.
times to be able for the people, for us to gain control of our government. And and we have to understand what that means and what it looks like. And that's what we're doing with Luca, right? Is we are out there showing and doing the work. We get in the trenches and we do the actual work that we literally have not done for decades and decades, and we haven't been paying attention. And so this is how the result, how our government got so powerful. Early 1700s, 1800s. Are you kidding me? Politicians, civil servants would have never been allowed to do what they are doing now, because they were met with the most severe punishment of treason against the free people. So, and we're not condoning violence at all, but what we're saying is that the people need to get involved and make sure that we are properly voting in the grassroots candidates, like people like us that believe in constitutional, that the Constitution is what keeps us free. We must protect it. Our forefathers were so smart. And so before we run out of time here, I just want to encourage everybody to come and join us. As you guys can see, Carlos here, our younger generation, he is just doing a fantastic job in leading the way in understanding that, because he's a part of the group that was being indoctrinated. He was a part of this generation that was, literally being told that the white man is bad, and, and to hate America and to hate what the Constitution stands for, because it was oppressive, right? And so, again, we're so proud to have you. Your voice is so powerful, and even at my generation and my age, we're looking, to you as well, to help reach out to those that can understand you more than what they'll probably understand me, because I'm old school. So we're asking all of you, as you can see, our website is going across here on the banner. Please go visit our website, learn more about our organization, because this is what we do. We get in there, we fight, we're taking our country back. We the people are back. Okay, there's a lot of work to do, and we've got to get it done now. And you can follow us on every social media site. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, on X. We're everywhere, you guys. And if you're here in Texas, Carlos, this is our saving grace. And if Texas goes, there goes the nation. So I'm so proud of you for fighting the way that you do in your voice. And I'm so happy to have this show with you tonight.
Thank you, Melinda.
All right. Well, you guys stay tuned, and there's a lot. Carlos has already got other things planned. So when we ask, hey, we got this going on, come join us. We need every single person to get involved, and we're stronger and more powerful in numbers. So God bless you guys. Carlos, thanks again, and you guys have a wonderful night. Take care. Bye.